Level 1. The waiting game. It starts the moment you send the message. You watch the screen. 2 minutes pass, then 5, then 20. You check again, not because you expect anything, but because you can't stop yourself. She's seen it. The read receipt is right there. You start rewriting the next message in your head. Something casual, something that doesn't look like you're waiting. You send a follow-up anyway, before she even responds to the first one. This is where everyone begins. You don't understand the rules yet. You think attraction is about effort. You think if you show enough interest, enough availability, enough warmth, someone will match it. So you text back immediately. You clear your schedule. You say yes to everything. And it doesn't work. At least not the way you think it should. You don't know what scarcity is yet. You don't know that your constant availability is the problem. You think you're being genuine, and you are. But genuine without mystery reads as desperate, and desperate reads as low value, even to people who would never say it out loud. The rejection stings in ways you don't expect. Not just the rejection itself, the confusion. Why wasn't this enough? You gave everything. You don't understand yet that giving everything too soon to someone who hasn't earned it is the first mistake almost everyone makes. Level 2. Pattern recognition. The second time it happens, something shifts. Not a lot, but enough. You stop blaming luck. You start watching. You notice the guy across the room who doesn't try, and somehow that makes people try for him. You notice how the ones who text back slowly get more attention than the ones who text back instantly. You start to see the pattern before you understand it, so you experiment. You wait 20 minutes before responding. She replies faster. You cancel plans once, not to be cruel, just to test the theory, and she reschedules immediately. You're not manipulating anyone. You're learning how the system actually works versus how you thought it worked. This level is uncomfortable because you're aware enough to see the game but not confident enough to play it naturally. You're still performing, still calculating. Every move is deliberate and it shows, faintly, in the way you hesitate before speaking, the way you check your phone after you've already decided not to text. You start reading, watching, analyzing. Some of it helps. Some of it makes you more anxious. You know what neediness looks like now, which means you're terrified of being seen as needy, and that fear is its own form of neediness. You haven't solved the problem. You've just become aware of it, but awareness is the beginning of everything. Level 3. The first real pull. She texts first, not because you played it perfectly, because for the first time you were genuinely busy. You weren't waiting, you weren't strategizing, you were just living, and she noticed the absence before you did. That's the first time you feel it, that pull, the way attention flows towards stillness. Your conversations change. You're not performing interest anymore. You have standards now, small ones, but real ones. You stop laughing at things that aren't funny. You stop agreeing just to keep the peace. And something in the dynamic shifts. She starts asking questions about you, real ones. You're more selective about who you give your time to, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've started to realize your time has value. That realization is quiet and new, and you hold it carefully. You still get rejected, but it lands differently, less like a verdict, more like information. Not everyone is for you. You're starting to believe that, not as a consolation, but as a fact. Level 4. Social awareness. You walk into a room and you feel the energy before you understand it. Who's watching, who's performing, who actually owns the space and who's pretending to. You read group dynamics now without trying. You know who likes who. You know who's insecure. You can see the chase happening in real time across a crowded bar, and you know exactly how it ends. Your confidence is becoming structural rather than situational. Before, you felt confident when things were going well. Now you feel steady even when they're not. That's different. That's a foundation. You hold eye contact longer, not to intimidate, just because you're not afraid of it anymore. Women notice. Men notice. The room recalibrates around you without you saying a word. You stop over-explaining yourself. A one-word answer where there used to be a paragraph. Silence where there used to be nervous filler. You start to understand that restraint reads as power. Level 5. The magnetism activates. You don't pursue, you attract. The shift is subtle but total. You're not doing anything differently on the surface. You show up the same way. But the internal posture has changed, and people feel it in ways they can't articulate. She leans in when you talk. Not physically, always, just more present, more invested. You leave a date early because you actually have somewhere to be. She texts you 20 minutes later, not because of the tactic, because it was real, and reality has a weight to it that performance never does. You have 3 women in your phone right now who are more interested in you than you are in them. You're not proud of it. You're just aware of it. You handle it carefully. You're honest where you can be. The attention economy is visible to you now. You see how validation flows, how interest spikes and dips, how the moment you fully commit your attention, the chase dies. You regulate yourself, not coldly, carefully. People describe you as mysterious. You're not trying to be. You're just no longer narrating every thought out loud. Level 6. The controlled burn. You can feel when someone is starting to fall, not in an arrogant way, in a quiet, observational way. The tone of her text changes. She starts initiating. The response time drops from hours to minutes. She brings you up to her friends before you've met them. You've been here before. You know how this goes if you let it run unchecked, so you manage the temperature. You stay warm but not consuming, present but not suffocating. You give her space before she asks for it, and that becomes its own kind of intimacy. Your emotional reactions are controlled now, not suppressed, controlled. There's a difference. You feel everything. You just don't bleed it into the room. She says something designed to provoke a reaction, and you hold it for a beat before responding. Not because you're cold, because you've learned that your reaction is currency, and you spend it intentionally. People trust you more, not because you're invulnerable, because you're consistent. You are the same person in a crowded room as you are at 2 a.m. when everything is quiet. That consistency is rare. People anchor to it without realizing they're doing it. Level 7. The weight of awareness. Something starts to cost you now. You're highly attractive, emotionally intelligent, socially fluent. People want your attention, and you're selective about who gets it. On paper, this is the goal, but you've become too good at reading people. You can tell within 20 minutes whether someone is going to be emotionally available or not. You can feel the anxious attachment pattern before it surfaces. You can see the avoidance before the conversation ends. You can predict with uncomfortable accuracy how most connections will end, and that foreknowledge takes something out of the experience. There are fewer surprises, less electricity. You've stopped chasing feelings you know aren't sustainable, and that's healthy, but it's also quieter than you expected it to be. You have long stretches where you're alone and you're fine with it, genuinely fine, but sometimes you miss not knowing. You miss the recklessness of level 1. The not knowing felt like possibility. This level feels like management. You're still good at this. You're just less impressed by your own skill. Level 8. The still point. You check your phone once, not because you're waiting for anything, just to check. There are 3 unread messages. You'll respond when it feels right. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. Not as strategy, as preference. This level is hard to explain to people who haven't lived it. The chaos is gone. The anxiety about who likes you, who doesn't, whether you said the right thing, whether you should have waited longer to text, all of it has quieted. Not because you figured out all the answers, because you stopped needing them. You're selective now in a way that's almost inconvenient. Most connections don't make it past the first conversation, not because you're arrogant, but because your baseline for what feels worth your energy is higher than it used to be. Women who would have overwhelmed you at level 1 don't shake you now. You feel the pull, you appreciate it, and then you decide, quietly, whether to move toward it or not. That decision is yours. It's always yours. The cost is real. You're harder to reach, not emotionally closed, but slower to open. The distance between you and other people is sometimes exactly what you chose, and sometimes lonelier than you meant it to be. You don't perform anymore. You don't optimize. You just exist in the room and let people decide what to do with that. That's the version of yourself you spent years becoming.